Everybody, here are some directions for our final in concepts of physical wellness. This is not a traditional written exam that you may be used to when you think of a final. This is a portfolio. So we have a couple of different ways in which you may submit this. It may be submitted in one Word document. It can be submitted in a PowerPoint narrated slideshow. It can be presented in Google Docs as also a slideshow, or as something that we call Google Sites, and you can take a look at that. But however you submit it, it must be involved. So keep in mind that it is due on July 7th by noon. Must be submitted by noon on July 7th. That is the deadline. Okay, so let's take a look at this. The first part that you want to take a look at, part A, is your wellness plan. Taking a look at all those areas of wellness, not only physical wellness, which is what we spend the majority of our time on since the course is called Components or the Concepts of Physical Wellness. But we know that physical wellness isn't the one and only thing. So we've talked about many other aspects of wellness in here: the spiritual wellness, the emotional, mental wellness, intellectual, environmental, cultural, social, occupational, and physical. So physical is one of these parts that you may not use. You do not use this one for your first. So then the plan, you design this plan that includes 2 of the above areas, and you write down 3 goals for improvement in that area and list 3 objectives for each goal. Here's an example for environment. I cannot tell you how many times students have submitted this exact thing to me, literally using my own words. They've cut and pasted and made environment one of their goals. I hope that each of you strives to make your environmental wellness higher or better. That's a wonderful thing, but perhaps you could do it in your own words. Now, this is a generic skeleton because I don't want to give too much information because literally students copy it. So what you would do is you would say, okay, my component that I wish to improve is environmental wellness. You will then give a statement about what it is and why you feel that that's important and what needs to happen. Maybe it was from your first assessment, the first line, and whatever that deal was, and then you write these down. When you're writing these objectives down, you'll know that they typically follow what we refer to as SMART goal setting. So when you're finished with goal, 3 objectives for each one of these, you'll then just write a little summary. That summary will include, so not only do you have an explanation as to why you've chosen this environmental component, or whichever component you select, that will have more information on it, and then you'll have a summary. I plan to do this immediately, starting to do yada, 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 whatever your story or situation is. And you'll do a second one. So literally you will have only 2 areas, 2 of these 7 areas that you'll improve and write a plan similar to this. Okay, so that's fairly simple. When you get to part B of your program, this is where you're taking your self-fitness program that we have worked on, designed, modified throughout the course. It must include cardiovascular fitness, muscular strength and endurance, flexibility, and then how does body composition goals fit into those? So each one of these areas you've already designed an exercise program. Now I've made modifications, you've literally done it, I've given you feedback on it, and you're going to put those modified, corrected fitness plans into here for your future. So when you start to do this, each one of them must follow the exercise principles of, frequency, intensity, time, type, the enjoyment factor. All of those types of things have to be included in here. When it gets to body composition, you can attach body composition to the first 2 in a very simple way. So for cardiovascular fitness, I know that this is the number 1 way in which I burn excessive calories. So underneath my cardiovascular fitness, not only do I want to increase my heart's ability to take in, transport, utilize oxygen, I also want to maximize my calorie burn, as losing 10 pounds is my goal in the next 60 days. So from that standpoint, then I would make sure that I include that in there and it matches up with my FITTE. So my FITTE we know that means that I have to do aerobic exercise a minimum of 3 times per week, but preferably up to 6 times per week in order to get that done. And that means that I need to be within my target heart rate range towards the low end, and I need to stay there for between 30 and 45 minutes. That's where I become a calorie burning inferno, despite all the things that you read about high intensity interval training. So that's one way I could do it. Or I could do a second way with resistance training, and I might say I need to increase my lean muscle mass. I am still going to decrease my percent fat. Okay, so then you start to design your resistance training programs based off of that. That typically means that you have low rests in between. Your repetitions are a set of about 12, period. One set of 12, move on to the next exercise. One set of 12, move on to the next exercise. Remember that when you get to number 12 repetition, you should be thanking whatever higher being you believe in that you don't have to do another repetition. That resistance or that load on your body should be causing those muscles to shake, and you are hitting what we refer to as momentary fatigue. That is always the goal with resistance training. Okay, so you would write on there, I'm going to do a workout designed like that to help burn calories and increase muscle mass. Flexibility doesn't have a lot to do with percent fat, and so we would just make sure that we include it in there. Now, each one of these things, I recommend that you do a program that looks like this. Cardiovascular endurance, that's CVE. You give your medical history, that's A. My medical history is that I have high cholesterol, but no other limitations. I don't know. Then you give your current fitness level. I scored exceedingly well. I scored poor on the 3-minute step test, 1 minute run, 1 mile run, whatever it was that you chose to do. And so I need to increase that. My specific goals would be to be able to run 1 mile in 5 minutes by the August 30th. The program is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and that's where you include your chart. What's mission critical for cardio fitness endurance is that you show the math of your target heart rate zone. Many people, we're all over the map with our target heart rate zone. We've done it in a bazillion different ways. There's one way to do it. I've shown 3 videos on it. That's the way that it is individualized, specific to you. You must use your target, you must use your resting heart rate, the average of that at least 2 days, exactly in the morning, not in the middle of the day. To get true resting heart rate, right? So if you're having trouble and you don't know what that is, send me an email. I'll resend you the video. We can work on it together. And so from that standpoint, then you attach the log. This is what I'm going to be doing. This is how long I'm going to be doing it. Nice and simple. When you get to your muscular strength, again, what are your goals? You'll list the exercises. Please note that your exercises should be listed because you're running the program. This is a beautiful thing. Large multi-group exercises first for the lower body, moving to more individualized, smaller muscle groups, and then you do the same for the upper body. Now, if you choose to do an alternate, so you do squats and then push-ups, and then you do lunges, and then you do pull-ups. Those are great ways to alternate lower body, upper body, lower body, upper body, to give your body a little bit more rest in between. But the bottom line is that those multi-joint exercises should be first. Then you go down to more specific things, keeping in mind that we here are asking for you to do a full body exercise. I've given you several examples of what needs to happen there. If you were choosing a split routine, that's fine. Explain why. Write that down. But you need to write down the exercises. You will do the sets and repetitions. Sets, repetitions, resistance, or that's the load, and or the rest time. Your heart rate is not a factor in resistance training. In fact, it will be above that target heart rate zone. It's anaerobic. The other thing is that total time to do an exercise is irrelevant as well. So you don't need to include that. what's really important to note that anytime you're raising the resistance up, we call that a concentric resistance. And that contraction should be a 1-2 hold. And then lower or eccentric contraction would be a 1-2-3-4, never taking the load off. So never extending full way, never literally letting your body drop. None of that is appropriate. You always want to keep the muscle or muscles under load. Then when you're finished, you can shake it out, do a 30-second rest, and some of you will do a 2-minute if you're doing heavy loads. However, but it should follow the protocol and meet with your goals. Now, from that standpoint, don't forget that you would also need to write cardio, or you would need to write muscular strength and endurance, and then you would write, I have no medical limitations. Some of you have a bulging disc. I have a bulging disc, but the doctor does not have any recommendation. I tore my MCL, but I'm cleared to do whatever. You would write those things down there, and then you go through and do the rest of it, then add your program. Flexibility is a unique thing. Are you going to do a program specifically related to flexibility because you love stretching, you love that feeling afterwards? Then that's perfectly fine. Make a separate workout. But that flexibility can be included in your other workout. Let's say you're going to be a Monday, Wednesday, Friday worker outer. You can do your cardio followed by your full body resistance, followed by a nice stretching routine. And that's all you have to do, literally, in order to see some improvements. Okay, so keep that in mind. From there, we move on to the nutrition plan. Nutrition was a little bit difficult. Your choosemyplate.gov website was taken down and alternated. So in your workout or in your class, I've given you other ways and alternative ways to do that. You need to include 2 days of food diary. The 2 days that you've already done are perfect. I've made some corrections. So what were the nutrients that you took in? I've given you several websites, they're free, in order to be able to input your food and determine what your nutrients were. Let's take a look at what the nutrients are and maybe where you're at. Maybe you're not getting enough fruits and vegetables. Maybe your protein content is too high. Some of you didn't include any of the water or liquids that you've consumed. Everything should be included in there so that we can ensure proper hydration and all the concerns that go along with nutrition. The other part that's not really able to be determined through nutritional analysis in the nutrient way, but that is the psychosocial and psycho-emotional aspect of nutrition. Many of us here in our country are fortunate enough to be able to have ample supplies of food. And so the problem often becomes food becomes our friend. And so we use food for all sorts of things. Food is what we do on a first date. Food is how we celebrate a marriage, a birth. Food is how we mourn. So some of the things are that food becomes emotional, right? Thanksgiving is this big family time all around food. So keep in mind, like, are you noticing patterns? Like when you're feeling stressed, do you want salty crunchy? When you're feeling elated, do you want smooth, creamy chocolate ooey gooey? What are some of the things that when you're feeling lonely, when you're bored, is that driving you to eat? How long are you taking to eat? Literally, each spoonful or forkful of food that you put into your mouth, you should attempt to chew 32 times. Put your fork, silverware, whatever, down and chew. When that is gone, then put more food in. This is an interesting concept. So from that standpoint, you'll write all of that in there, and that's your nutrition plan. And then finally, this is your stress management. D is the stress management. You have listed and you have evaluated your life and you have come up with your top 5 stressors. Now, I've had many students come to me and say, I can't find 5 stressors. Okay, that's great. If you don't have top 5 stressors in your life, then that's a fabulous thing. You should not have to rack your brain to determine if you have 5 stressors. When you say to me, what are your top 5 stressors, I can list them off with no trouble at all. Okay, so you're going to talk about those. Again, if you don't have 5, Hooray, celebrate that. Okay. And you're going to sit there and you're going to now talk about what you've done in your lab and how you're going to present